Good morning, everybody. And we're going to make a start and talk you through an exciting way of using Salesforce for measuring impact. Sorry, my slides seem to have frozen, so I may start. Slight hiccup error. Let me just see what's happening here. Give me a second. Right, they seem to be working now, I think. So welcome once again to our webinar about measuring impact. So with economic change, we started using Salesforce to measure impact back in 2010, and that's really what got us excited about Salesforce, in that we could customize it as a tool to help us measure a whole range of things that a non-profit wants to measure. And so we specialise in organisation and in providing an end-to-end impact measurement process. So we work with organisations to help them think about what they're measuring, how to measure it, and then put in the systems and tools to help them collect all of that data and analyse it real time. It's something that we're really passionate about, and our team are specialised in different areas and different causes to help you do that. We have a strategic approach to how we implement things, and we structure our work with clients very much around a 10-step process, and we follow our guide to measuring social impact and our guide to developing a management system. So we support clients to think through the whole process in a very logical manner, and that's the biggest feedback we have from our clients, is that we've provided a structured approach for them to think through things and how they actually implement a good process. In terms of what you can measure within Salesforce, again, we love Salesforce because you can manipulate it and customize it to collect really anything that you want. And so when we work with organizations, we help them to measure impact around their core mission, around performance on contracts and grants and delivery to their beneficiaries. They can also track impact around the environmental areas that they have. So if they have an environmental policy in place, they may want to track various things around what they're doing around environmental practices and be able to demonstrate that their policy is actually happening in practice. They may also want to measure the impact they have on their employees and volunteers, and that very much ties in with things like investors in people. So it might be around tracking CPD, hours, training hours, qualifications and health and wellbeing surveys, etc. Another area might be around quality, performance and supply chain. So have you got the right health and safety things in place? Have you got a supply chain that's working with other local or non-profit providers? And are you tracking all of that also within Salesforce? So it really helps you win kite marks that might look at quality and supply chain management. And finally, around customer satisfaction and customer service. So that's a very sort of native thing to Salesforce. It's all around customer satisfaction, and the Service Cloud and the features that are within that are all about customer management. And so really you can track a whole range of impact areas within Salesforce. What we're focusing today on this webinar is very much around delivery and performance. So looking at how you deliver services to your beneficiaries, which may be other organisations, but they may also be people. And so we'll look at the sort of variances there. In terms of our client list, again, Salesforce can scale. So we work with small organisations like Standalone that had a big lottery grant to provide support to organisations in 3 different areas of the UK, to large organisations like Liberty, who had a £7 million project with the big lottery to support young people into enterprise and employment, and they are organisations that have used Salesforce to help them measure their impact. And so it can be used in a wide range of ways by different type of organisations with different causes. In terms of excellence, I've touched on the end-to-end solution. So what do I mean by that? Well, with end-to-end, we're looking at having a really good theory of change and impact framework in place. So the first question we ask you is, what is your theory of change? What are you measuring? And I'll show an example of that in a minute. We'll then talk about the monitoring processes. So that's, how do you gather this data? What are the processes of collecting it? And then we'll look at sort of monitoring systems and data collection tools. So what system and tools can you use? Obviously we're talking about Salesforce, but there's a lot of third-party apps that can aid this monitoring data collection process. So we'll have a look at some of the examples in the marketplace. And then we'll look at real-time data analytics and the functionality that's available there, and that's where I'm excited to be able to show you Wave Analytics, which has now become very affordable for non-profits. It was, when it was launched, quite an expensive solution, but Salesforce.org now are able to offer really good rates on Wave Analytics. It's not a tool that perhaps everybody will need within your organisation, just those really involved in analysis and social impact measurement. So yeah, we'll see the demonstration of that later on. And overall, having these key pillars in place will help you evaluate your performance. So what we're looking at now is a theory of change model. What it is an A4 visual that shows what your key performance indicators are. What are you tracking? So it shows the core activities, which are the objectives here. So within this example, we're looking at an employability support program. So there's 3 different kinds of activities that happen. There are a set of outputs that want to be measured, and then there's a series of outcomes on a short, medium and long term. So if a client gave us this, we'd be sort of taking that away and going, okay, we need to design a system that's going to allow them to produce the reports and the dashboard that is going to be able to report on these real time, and it's a really good starting point. In terms of breaking down the different components of a theory of change, obviously you have an aim, which is a statement about your vision, which is great, probably less related to the Salesforce build, but it should be in there. I think it's interesting to have the context and cause. So what are the statistics and evidence about the issue that you're tracking? Because maybe within your system you could have benchmarks within it to see actually how are you performing against national and local averages, and that would be a particular area to look at, so your team can sort of see their performance more widely. In terms of objectives, these are the activities that are being delivered. So it's about tracking what activities and intervention is happening within your Salesforce system. It's interesting to know the different stakeholders and what's of interest to them. So ideally, within Salesforce, you can collect information about all your stakeholders, but also show how those stakeholders are interacting in your delivery. So if you need to report back to any type of stakeholder or oversee which stakeholder has been involved to what level, you've got all of those relationships mapped out in your system, whether it's partners, funders, volunteers, beneficiaries, you've got the big picture view. So we like to make sure that all stakeholders are represented within your CRM, so you've got the big joined up picture. We can also track inputs, so that's maybe around in-kind resource, so that's volunteer hours, for example, or it might be about financial investment into the project. And again, you can embed this in, and I'll show you an example of this within our demo org in a moment. In terms of outputs, it might be about the scale of delivery, so how many sessions have you done with somebody, how many workshops have you run, how many outreach events have you done, all of that scale and quantity of the delivery that you've delivered, what do you want to track? In terms of outcomes, that's about the change, and that's about the change that you're having with, again, different stakeholders. So you might be supporting volunteers to develop skills or get into employment. You may be starting businesses to grow and develop, and you may be supporting unemployed people back into employment, for example. So there's different range of stakeholders that you might want to track change over time. And then there's the wider impact, and that touches on some of the things that we mentioned around, whether it's community, environmental, there's maybe other wider impacts you want to collect. So the first step is really to be really clear on what it is you're collecting, and then to make a list of things that you might want to collect within your system. So here I've really knuckled it down as to baseline data. You might want to collect things like origin of the lead, source of referral, reason for why they were referred, all the demographic information, whether they're in a deprived area or not, what their socioeconomic status was at the start of their engagement with you, what their personal goals are, and you might do a baseline assessment with them to ask them a range of questions around, well, how would you rate yourself with confidence, or confidence around a particular skill, or or a knowledge area or something like that. So you can collect a series of baseline information. And once you've kind of engaged them on your program, you might then track the outputs and intervention, as we mentioned before. So it could be hours of support somebody's had, the duration of support, the type of support provided, the financial cost of the support provided, attainment rates and the level of engagement, so how long they stayed with you and have they stayed with you the length of period that they were expected to. And as I mentioned before, maybe the stakeholder involvement, so the number of referrals you've done to different partners, or the number of partners actually engaged in your provision. And once you've delivered these services, it's then really about tracking the impact, which is the outcomes. So within your system, you want to track soft and hard outcomes. For example, you might want to do distance travelled assessment to see, well, okay, if they rated themselves on a scale of 1 to 10 at the beginning and then rated themselves at the end, you can track the difference and then create dashboards and graphs around that change. You might want to track the change in status, the socioeconomic status of the person. You might want to track the value of the outcome achieved, particularly if you're running payment by results contracts where you're paid for each outcome that you've done. So that has been a key requirement for some of our clients who have been delivering public sector contracts. And you may want to show the payment related to outcomes achieved, and as I mentioned before, comparative benchmarks. So they're just some of the ideas, and I'll show you the architecture in a moment about how that can be put together. So once we've defined what it is you're wanting to collect in the system, it's then around putting in the system in place. And obviously, I'm hopefully talking some of the converted here. It is about having a CRM in place. And for me, impact measurement is very much about the person rather than just data. So there's a lot of organisations out there and impact measurement consultancies that will collect things on spreadsheets and do SurveyMonkey, but nothing's joined up. It's just collecting a lot of data that you can analyse. It's not really looking at the 360-degree view of a person and seeing everything you've done with them, every interaction and every outcome you've achieved, and really creating a picture of that person, that relationship, because everybody's different, and being able to tell a story around the impact in that way. I think if you start doing impact data analysis separately on spreadsheets and SurveyMonkeys and things, everything's disjointed, and it's not really about the person at the end of the day. It's just about proving your worth as an organisation and just analysing just data. So within the CRM, you can see the person profile, but then you can aggregate that data to create these analytics dashboards, which obviously gives you the big picture. And it allows you to have much better client relationships, improved team visibility, and as we love real-time analytics, so if you need to write a funding bid, you can log in at any time and get all the stats. When I was involved in fundraising for a youth organisation, it was brilliant just to be able to log in and pull all our stats off to see how many people we got into work, or how many people we're working with at that point in time in which deprived areas, of which age group, of which ethnicity. All of this data. With every funding application, you're having to find and retrieve different information. And with Salesforce, if you've got it all in there, you can analyse it all. So you can suddenly sort and go, well, actually, who are we working with in London? Let's pull that data together. Or actually, we're going to run a programme for young females. Who do we work with and what have been the impact to date? And you can break up and categorise all of your data really simply. And that, that is amazing to have at your fingertips. And in terms of improved security of data, obviously what we want is to use a system that's going to keep all of this data secure and not at risk of breach. And that is another thing that's increasingly important to commissioners and funders at the moment. So moving on to a structure, best practice in structuring things within your CRM. What I very much encourage is that as an organisation, you want to see your impact as a whole. And quite often, non-profits can get dragged into measuring impact for a project over here, and they adopt their own process and their own methods and their own KPIs, and it isn't linked into an organisational kind of theory of change or any way to easily conglomerate. So when the CEO and trustee board are like, how do we measure our impact? They're like, okay, well, we'll just go through all the different analysis of our different projects, and it's all quite disjointed. What I really encourage is that there's a theory of change and a set of indicators that sit at an organisational level. And underneath that, you then might have programmes and themes that sit underneath that. So maybe you have employment, health and well-being, and a different range of themes, programs or services you might call them, that then sort of allow people to be categorized. And again, there's a set of indicators that sit within each of those. And then underneath each of those, you might have different funders or contracts that fund a specific project or program. So hopefully you can start to create a hierarchy, but there's a set of joined up indicators that link all the way up. So within Salesforce and your analytics, you should be able to create a dashboard that's for the organization, and it shows you a whole range of stats, but then you can set a filter by program or a filter by contract, and what it will do is recalculate and just narrow down on the data that's most relevant for that specific contract or service. So I'll show you that in practice in a minute. When we go down to the next level of what we're tracking on a beneficiary, which, as I say, could be an organisation or a person in this sense, is you can set up a set of objects which perhaps track their relationship to the programme. So here I've called it registration, which might be a support plan that you do with them where you're assessing what their needs are and setting goals. You might then do a set of assessments, as I mentioned before, so you might assess what their baseline information is and how they'd rate themselves on a series of things, and then you might do sequential assessments, maybe at 3, 6, 9 months, or a final one. Different people have it in different ways. And then you might have a support object that logs all of the support you're giving, whether it's appointments, meetings, telephones, emails, training workshops, etc. It logs all the hours there. And then the outcomes object, which tracks the outcomes that are being achieved. And the design that I'll show you today is certainly not an off-the-shelf design. It's something that's used by quite a lot of our clients, but to be honest, every client has had a slightly different architecture because every organisation is different. And it's one of the reasons why we haven't necessarily set up an off-the-shelf one that people can just download, because the beauty of Salesforce, it is customisable, and quite often you know, you want to relate to things in different ways. You have your own terminology and your own structure. But what's important with all these objects, and going back to my last slide in the hierarchy, is that within any of these objects and records, you could perhaps relate to a specific partner or a program or a contract and make it flexible in that way, which allows then you to filter the information. So I'm going to jump over to my demo org and just tell a story of Lisa, who's a beneficiary in our system, to show you how this works in practice. So with Lisa, we have a contact record here. And the contact record collects a certain amount of information. And I always like to say that it should really only collect the information that's going to be static in time. Okay, an address might change, and that's absolutely fine. You can track that sort of information. Demographics typically tend to remain the same. Referral information, however, might change, because if they engage on different programs, referral information might be best in another part of the system. In this particular instance, we have it on the contact record, but it's not always the best place for it to be. We also have volunteer information on here, so we can see that Lisa is a beneficiary, but she's also been engaged in volunteering, and we've got some information about what she'd like to do in terms of volunteering. And below her main information on here, this particular record, what we have is related lists. So if I scroll down, I can see there's a task that was allocated to help Lisa find some housing. We can log calls or send an email through the system, so we've got the picture of what correspondence has been happening here. We can see Lisa has been related to a specific program and contract and has been involved in volunteering, and has been a volunteer on the health and wellbeing program. And we can see that she's been supported as a beneficiary on the big lottery program around employment support. So we'll have a look at some of this journey in a moment. So when Lisa engaged on the big lottery or the employment support program, a support plan was set up for her. So again, we'll have a look at this in more detail, and we can see the support that she had, the assessments that relate to her. We can see that she was referred to Trafford Housing, and we can see the outcomes that she achieved. And also we could see any feedback forms that she might have taken, and we can see any emails that have been sent to her. And also there's a set of notes and attachments that can be shown. So all of these related lists are optional, but it shows that 360-degree view. So what I'm going to do is jump on my support plan record, and this has some fun things in it that help you do analysis. So we've got simple things like Lisa, and she's on this support plan being particularly funded by the contract, Cheshire County council and programme employment support. We've got a status record which shows at what stage she is at in this programme, various fields around economic status at start, and some start date confirmed and signed fields here. And then in terms of measuring impact, we've got distance travelled. So some examples here. We've got a baseline score for confidence and a baseline score for relationships, and then a current one, and then we've calculated using formulas the difference, and these are automatically populated through the assessment records. This is a sort of a start and end change, but what we have done for some clients is do formulas, calculate change between 3, 6, 9, 12 months from when they started, so you can sort of track, you know, much more of a variation between where they are in the programme. We've also got some SMART goals on here, desired work, and then progression summary. Now these are using roll-up summaries within Salesforce, so I can see automatically there's been 26 hours of support provided to Lisa, which is coming from these records down here. So we can see she's participated in one-to-one meetings and a training workshop, which is calculated to 26 hours. We can see the value of the support she's been provided with is £1,120, which is what has been the cost of this training, which is again pulling from these support records down here. And the value of outcomes. So what we've done is spend £1,120 on Lisa, but the value of the outcome she has achieved on this programme during the 46 days she's been on it, so we've got a duration of programme here, has been £5,500. That's a pretty good return on cost-benefit analysis, return on investments equation there. There are some, there's a little bit more analysis that would need to go into that, and you would need to set your figures obviously in line with what is best practice, but it's easily achievable within the system. So if we log into a support record, you'll be able to see where that information has been pulled from. So on the support record, we can track what type of support it is that she's had, and that might equate to this value of support, which you can set as a formula. So if this is actually tracking a volunteer hour, so you can have standard hours for volunteers, and so this has been calculated at £20 per hour, so it's coming up with the value of support automatically. And also here we can see that Andy, as a volunteer, set a task for Sam to help her with housing. So that sort of information has been recorded in the support record. In terms of assessment record, that's going to simply be a record that collects their status in time, where they score themselves. And these are quite often online tools that people, the volunteer will complete with a client out perhaps in the community, and so this could be an online form, or we've certainly set up a number of systems where the volunteer has a login to the CRM and they can actually complete this record in situ within the CRM using community licenses, and we'll come back onto that in a moment. And in terms of outcomes, we've got a range of outcomes here where you can collect information. Again, you can set up different outcome records. Here we've got an example, it's all around employability. And you've got a value for the outcome that may be set by commissioners in terms of what it is, data achieved, and again you can attach evidence in here and submit for approval if it needs to go through an approval to check you've got everything. And then you've got referral records, which shows where you've referred people to in terms of social prescribing and areas like that. Now if I look back up to the Cheshire County Council contract, I can see all of these records underneath that contract. This will also be visible on the dashboard and reports that we'll have a look at in a minute, which obviously is the most exciting part. So I'm just going to jump back to our slides before we get on to reports and analytics. So we're going to just talk about data collection. So you can see all those fields, and that's great, but obviously one of the key things here is making sure that people get information into your system so you can analyse it. So ways of getting data in, you've got online survey tools that integrate into Salesforce, or you can indeed use some native Salesforce technology like Visualforce or their survey app tool. you've got offline forms, which could be through like your Salesforce One app, which has now an offline cache, or you could use another tool called Formula, which is available offline. You can, of course, give your stakeholders access to the CRM, make sure that obviously they can only see the information they need to see, so they can perhaps only see the beneficiaries that they're meant to see, or the clients they're working with, and so you can lock down the system, and typically that's using community licenses. You can use mobile text messaging, or indeed Salesforce One to get data in. Again, a lot of the online surveys can be mobile friendly as well. You can have website interactions, so that's using things like live chat, where you're getting more qualitative feedback from people, but if people log on your site, you can have a live chat with them there and then. And indeed, social media is becoming much more of a channel of getting feedback as well. So with Salesforce, you have a way of integrating with social media, so you can pull through the messages that have been coming through. So data collection should allow for quantitative and qualitative data collection. And what we've done is put together a whole load of slides here with some of the tools that we've used and are available for you to explore. I'm just going to hand over to Sarah to just talk through some of the online survey functionality. Sarah, do you want to join us?
Hi everyone, yes, I hope you can hear me well. So if you can go to the next slide, Heather, thank you. So this slide gives a brief overview of some of the most popular online form tools on the market at the moment. But bear in mind, this information is subject to change as things are constantly changing, and this is based on the information that is currently available. So it may be that if you talk to the actual companies, there may be further information that they can divulge with you. So Form Assembly is a really useful online form tool that I've used with many clients before. It really allows you to update your existing Salesforce records, create any Salesforce records you want. You can integrate it with your Stripe or PayPal so that you can actually use it as your donation forms. And when you're creating it, you can see how it's going to look in mobiles, and it's a really easy to use online form system that's very easy to customize, ensure that it's branded. It's got really good support, although if you wanted it for more in-depth research or for multiple languages, it may not be suitable. In terms of multiple languages, you'd have to have a different form for every language. And for the in-depth research, it doesn't have the range of questions that, say, Qualtrics has. So Qualtrics is one of the most expensive tools on the market, but is definitely one of the most advanced in terms of research capabilities. The higher education, universities, colleges, research tend to use Qualtrics as it has the most range of different types of questions that you can ask. You can really build the forms to do all of your research for you. But if you're using it to gather survey results, it may be almost too powerful for you. You might not need to go to the Qualtrics level. In terms of issues around Qualtrics, it can be a little bit harder to integrate with Salesforce, and not as much of the pre-population of the forms beforehand. SurveyMonkey and any other form actually that doesn't yet integrate with Salesforce, you can combine it with Zapier. So with Zapier, you have Zaps, which basically allows information from any of your systems to then talk to the systems that you currently want to use. So by combining SurveyMonkey and Zapier and have a Zap talking to each other, and then combining that to Salesforce, you can really make it into a powerful system. Again, it can be a little bit harder to set up, a little bit more knowledge needed, as you're not just using the one system, you are bringing in another party, Zapier, which can need a bit more in-depth knowledge and work around that, but definitely can be very powerful to use. Fast forms is a more not as old as some of the other surveys, but the reviews they're getting are really popular. Same with form assembly. It's got a very similar range of facilities that it's capable of. Not really for in-depth research, but it's very easy to use. It integrates with Salesforce really well, mobile responsive, and has, again, really good support. Timber Surveys and Surveyforce are both the free apps that are out there at the moment. They use the Salesforce native sites to basically display your forms to external people if you want to, by changing the public access settings of the site. Or to internal customers. Now, as they are free, they don't have the full range of customizable features as some of the other tools do. But if you only want to send, say, 1 or 2 surveys, then I would definitely recommend looking into them and playing around with them in your sandbox and seeing if actually they have enough capabilities for you to be able to just use them. Timber, particularly, even though it's free, has really good support and is very popular in terms of that. Both of them, however, are more about relating the survey to your object. So in your contact record, in one of your related lists, it'll be, at least for Surveyforce, you'll have your surveys related there. It is possible to try and then put the information into your existing fields using, say, Process Builder. But again, that would be additional work that you would need to do on top of that. Click Tools is very popular amongst many Salesforce customers. It is more expensive than, say, Form Assembly and Fast Forms. But again, it comes with a very good package of support and a very good range of fields and forms that you can use to make really powerful surveys. Again, probably not for in-depth research level research, but for surveying, it is very powerful and very good. Heather, is there anything you'd like to add?
That's great. Thanks, Sarah. No, I think that's a really good synopsis. So I'll take back over and just take you through the next set of slides before we move on to Tice. So hopefully that gives you an idea. So I think in summary, what you want to achieve is really a set of ways of collecting data. Now, obviously, it depends on what type of beneficiaries you're working with. The online forms will work for some kind of stakeholders and obviously not others. And so, you know, the more traditional way of getting a paper form and updating the data into Salesforce manually is one approach. There is a possibility that if you get a paper form that it could be scanned and that information could be uploaded. Again, that's a, you know, a very customizable sort of custom built implementation. So you've kind of got online surveys, you've got offline input, you've got the ability to give your stakeholders CRM access using communities, and that's certainly quite something that a lot of our clients have used going forward. You've got website interaction, as I mentioned, live chat and Snapchat are two of the things on the App Exchange that you can look at. You've got mobile engagement in terms of text, bringing text messages into your system, and you've also got Salesforce Marketing Cloud now, which again works across custom objects and allows for text messaging and email communication and that information being tracked back into the system. We're not covering Marketing Cloud today, but I'm sure that's another one that we'll do on our webinars. And then you've got the social media, Social Studio provided by Salesforce as well. So there's lots of different ways of getting data into your system. Now, going to the exciting bit, we'll look at dashboards for a moment. And what we're going to do, so I've got an example dashboard here, but we'll go back and have a look at the one that's actually in the native Salesforce Classic at the moment. So I will click to my dashboard. So obviously we went through Lisa's journey, but there's been a few people going through that journey. So what I've got here is an example dashboard which shows me a set of graphs that I need to see real time because I'm managing this contract. So I want to see outcomes achieved by month, value of outcomes achieved by month, income value, change in IT score I've got here. So this is the assessment distance travelled, the average score change, hours of support provided. So again, I've got a RAG score on here, outcomes achieved, overall, and economic status at start. So just a sample range of graphs there. Again, you can set up any graphs that you want based on the data in the system. I've just shown a variety of charts here. Again, you can choose your own chart type, whether it's tables, pie charts, gauge charts that you might want to see. And you can set these up to be by month, by year, by week, again, a whole range of time frame. And these are the filters that I was talking about in terms of, this being an organizational view. It's showing me outcomes for any project and any program, an organizational view. If I want to then filter down to actually, I just want to see the outcomes for Cheshire County Council, I can click on the filter and it will recalculate. And actually with Cheshire, I then might want to choose a partner organisation that's been involved in that contract, and it will go to that level. And I could have a third filter in here, which is all about maybe gender. So I want to see what's happened on a gender specific, so what's happened with the males and the females on the Cheshire County Council. And so within the typical dashboards in Salesforce, you can get up to 3 different filters. And that's why I'm excited about Wave Analytics, because it allows you to have many more filters in there. So we'll hand over in a second. For those of you who are new to Salesforce and are considering it as a tool, the benefit of the dashboards is that you can refresh them daily on the native classic platform. So every morning when you wake up, you can see the new data. With Wave Analytics, you can set the refresh to be much more frequent. So it can refresh throughout the day. And again, Tice can tell you a bit more about that. If I click into one of these graphs, it takes me to the report. And you are easily able to customize these reports. So if I click on customize, I can choose the fields that I want to include in the report. So I can quickly add new fields in here. I can group by different information, so rather than date achieved, I might want to sort by start date instead. And you can set these dates by day, week, month, quarter, year. So I'm grouping information, and you can set buckets as well. So if you want to group people by age, you can set up groupings where you're categorizing stakeholders by age, so those under 25, those over 25, and allowing to build categories around that as well. So you have bucket fields, and you have formula fields to be able to calculate duration on program. So this is a formula field that's calculating the difference between start date and end date. So rather than having that formula field in your record, you might have that formula field actually built within your report itself. And you can export any of these. You can change and add a chart, and you can export the spreadsheet as a CSV file or Excel file, and you can save down the dashboards as JPEGs, so you can easily make them available to funders. And even in some cases, you can give your funder a login to see the dashboard, and we've certainly done that with some of our clients, where they can actually log in and the client can see this dashboard real time. And so you have a flexibility here. Now I'm going to hand over to Tice now to take this one level further. So if you're really into sort of grilling down into stats like I am, that's why I love Wave Analytics. I'll hand over. Tice, over to you. I'll just give you presenter rights and let you show analytics.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Tice Bokkers. I'm a solution engineer for Salesforce.org. And in the next 15 to 20 minutes, I'm going to give you a brief introduction onto what Wave is capable of. So I'll start off with a couple of slides. As a very high-level introduction, and for people that have seen Salesforce presentation before, you may recognize some of these slides, but really to set a bit of the scene. Over the years, more and more devices are being connected. Whereby in the past, you were lucky to have your computer connected to the internet, and nowadays you cannot even imagine the amount of devices that are connected to the internet. Going as far as cars talking to your phone, and even toothbrushes keeping track of how you brush your teeth. And all of those is being connected, and all that data, you want to do something with that if that is if that is part of your customer experience. And what we are delivering at Salesforce is a platform, what we call the Customer Success Platform, which really allows you to tie all those things together. And as part of that platform, we also have, this is roughly how that stack all stacks together. So we have our multi-tenant cloud, and multi-tenancy is really that it doesn't matter how many people are using it, and if you're using it with multiple users, you're all on the same version, and we upgrade the system automatically for you. There's a lot more to multi-tenancy. I'm more than happy to dive into that another time, but due to time constraints for this, we'll try and focus on one of those apps that we have as part of our customer success platform, which is the Analytics Cloud. Now, Analytics Cloud is one of the taglines that we have for that is analytics for the rest of us. Now, why did we call it that? Is we realized that, even though we'd love you to use Salesforce for as many things as you like, you will have other systems as well. So your customer data is effectively living in a variety of systems. Some of it may be in Salesforce, but very likely you use other tools like some of those pointed here on the right-hand side. But what you want is you want to get insight into that, and you want to get insight across all of that data. So you not only want to see, where's my pipeline, where am I going with regards to donations, how can I grow my donor base, and where can I find the next big donor. So all of that data, you have all of that somewhere, but you want to turn that data into insights. Now, in the past, getting insights was relatively difficult. You need to involve IT. Various times you had to log a ticket. So it was really difficult to access the right answers, and it's really difficult to connect the right data as well, because of the way that the various systems hang together. But the key thing is, relational databases actually are not designed for reporting across high-level data sets. A relational database is really there for data entry, but not for data analysis if you talk about millions and millions of records. So effectively at Salesforce, about a year and a half, they said, so what if we could effectively reinvent analytics for today's business? Because today's business is, you want to get your answers anywhere where you are. So you want to have it on a mobile device, and you want to have it across your whole platform, and you want to have it quick and easy to use. And you want to have it across any data, any device, and available to everyone. So the Wave platform really allows you to connect external data sources as well as Salesforce data sources into that new layer, and then putting it into a database which is no longer a relational database, but what we call a columnar database. For the more technically minded people under us, a relational database, if you have your accounts and contacts, there are two objects in Salesforce, and they are related to each other. If you were to report on that inside Wave, it would all be in a single object, and all of that information would be next to each other like columns on a spreadsheet. All of that is then done with a very intuitive visualization layer on top as well, and with a query engine behind it, which allows you to do really, really quick searches on millions and millions of records. And it's still built on the same platform and trust and architecture that you expect from all of the Salesforce products. So with that, you can still get all the automatic upgrades. So the 3 upgrades we do each year, we're just about to go to our winter release. Wave effectively runs on that as well. And you also get all the permissions and all the trust. So if you are using data from Salesforce and a particular user does not have access to that data inside the Sales Cloud environment, and that data is then moved over to the Wave platform, it will inherit that security. So you don't have to worry about setting up new security rules, assuming you use the data from the Salesforce platform. So therefore, if you see on the top, that was the potential, your historical way on how to get, your insights is, you had your data warehouse, potentially data marts, and then you had number crunching going on a BI platform, visualization, or at least you try to run discovery tools. You're doing what if scenarios. You run your reports, and at some point in time, you effectively share them via Excel or PowerPoint, and you have the ability to get insights. Whereby with Salesforce, we effectively connect directly to your enterprise data warehouse and allow you to quickly make those changes yourself. And as part of the demo, I'll show you some pre-built dashboards, but I'll also show you how easy it is to effectively modify some of that data yourself. So let's get into a short demonstration. So I'm going into my browser here, and what I've logged into now is Wave Analytics. And let me go to the full screen. So this is Wave Analytics, and Wave Analytics is really built up of 4 different components. So first of all, we have our data sets, and the data set is effectively the raw data that we get either from Salesforce, and if you want to get data from Salesforce, there's a very intuitive wizard whereby you just say I want this particular object and I want those fields, and it's related to that object with those fields, and effectively without knowing or writing any code, you can get the data in from a Salesforce perspective. And if it's for instance, case-specific data, we even have like a service wave, as we call it, whereby you can, by just answering a couple of questions about what key fields you're using on case management, and we have similar for donations, effectively you are creating pre-built dashboards as well. So we're making it easier and easier to effectively load the data as data sets into Wave. Now those data sets are then transformed into lenses, and the lenses are effectively the filters, or looking at the data through a different lens. So we haven't made it in a graphical form yet, but we're effectively slicing and dicing the data in the way that we want to have it on our dashboards. Which brings us to our third component, the dashboards, and that's effectively where all the magic happens. That's where you see the data transform depending on all the click downs and the click throughs that you're doing, and that's what helps you get you through all the insights. And then finally, we have apps, and apps is really a mechanism to put some control and some security surrounding who can see what data set lens in dashboards. So the apps is effectively a way to make sure that you bundle a set of information, so a set of dashboards, lenses, and data sets under an umbrella, and then you can apply some security on that as well. So for now, we're going to look at Steps. Our Steps dashboard, and Steps is a fictitious organization that is all about helping homeless women in the US getting back into housing again. And from there we have a dashboard which we call our Homeless Dashboard Home. This is our homepage. This is where we start our investigation. So the data you're looking at here is data from homelessness. This is actual data that we got from the US government, looking at homeless data in the US across 2012 to 2014. Now what you see here, in 2014 there was a total of 578,000 homeless people registered. You see how many of those were individuals, how many of those were families, and then also from those individuals and families, some of those could have been a veteran as well. In the US they also try to show the amount of veterans that are having issues, because that really helps them in trying to bring across their mission to the audience. Because at the end of the day, those are the people that defended their country. And here we can see, how the data has changed over time. So we see a small increase for families, and then a decrease in the years after. We can also see the total homeless by type. So here we can see the amount of families, the amount of individuals, and the amount of veterans, on how that has changed year over year from 2011 to 2014. And then further down, we can also see how that then relates by state. What we've done on this dashboard, we've added some filters, and those filters are effectively buttons which you can click to effectively filter down on the data. So let's assume that here we see California, New York, and Florida, which are effectively in 2014 the states with the biggest amount, or the highest amount of homeless people. So we can do a bit of filtering on those. So let's select California, let's select Miami, and let's select New York. And once we selected all three, you'll see that the screen changes straight away, and it's filtering down, and it's only showing that data, so it's no longer showing all the other data. And then underneath here, we can see effectively the percentage change in homeless, how it compares from some states to the other. And for instance, if we look at 2014, in our most recent year that we have the data from, we see a huge decline in California, but an increase in Miami and New York. So maybe we want to have a look and see what is so successful last year in California. So we want to drill down into that. Again, here on the left-hand side, we've put some more analysis by state, so we can just click on the hyperlink, and that will open up a new dashboard for us. Here on the top, you see we started in the Steps app, then we went to the home page, and now we're in California homeless analysis, which is one of the sub-pages. So now we're looking at the data, particularly for California, again, by year, by type, and if we only, for instance, want to look at how are the families doing in 2014 versus 2013, then all we have to do is click those buttons, and then we could see how that changed, and how the enrollment effectively went down in actual numbers, and how effectively you see that here from 8.5% to 7.8%, and then further down as well. So again, it's very easy to just click on all of these dashboards and get further insights. And if you just want to go back again, all you do is you return to initial view, and it will bring back the initial view. So this will allow you to drill down really into the information that you're after. Now, all of this, of course, nice and well, but maybe here, and this is where I want to show you a little bit of the flexibility. Maybe we want to see here and see all of this data on a map, because just looking at numbers sometimes makes sense. But maybe if we look at it and scale it out on a map of the US with all the states, then we can also see if we can identify some trends. So let's get back to my Steps app, and then from there I can create a new dashboard. Okay, so from here I'm going to create what we call a new step, and I'm going to look at the 2014 homeless by state data. So I only want to look now for 2014. So all I do here is select effectively the lens that I want to use, and then I want to see this grouped by state. So now suddenly it's by state, but I don't want the amount of rows to be shown, because I know each and every state has a single row. I want effectively to see a sum of the total homeless by state. So now suddenly, all I've done is I clicked on a couple of things, and I'm grouped it by state, and I have the sum of the total homeless. And I can draw that on my drawn canvas. I can even make it a bit bigger. And there I have at least part of my dashboard. Now what I now want to do is I want to change this, because I don't want to see this because I already have this on one of my dashboards, maybe in a slightly different stage. But I want to edit my widget, and I want to change the chart type. And with the previous release of Wave, we effectively added the ability to add in maps. The default map is world countries, but there is a whole list here of things you can do. So US states is there, Americas, Europe, Eastern Europe, etc., etc. And this list is something that you can expand on. You have to do a little bit of development, but if you want to have, and at the moment, for instance, there is not a list yet for UK counties. So if you wanted to do that, you could easily build that. So let's go to US states, and there we are. So now I've effectively created this by state, and if I now go into viewing mode, this is how this would look like as a dashboard if I would save this. I can hover over my mouse, and I can see the number of homeless people by state just by hovering over it. And like I said, all this is done in a couple of minutes whilst talking about what I was doing as well. So if you have a little bit of knowledge on where you're going inside the Wave platform, hopefully you've seen that it's very easy to do this. All that what I've done now, you can do on the mobile phone as well. So we have a mobile app. So if you're a lot on the go, you can do all that analysis and drill down on your mobile app as well. And also one of the very cool things here is, let me go back for instance to the homeless analysis, is that you can quite easily share the image and maybe the image of what we had earlier, that we only wanted 2013 to 2014 comparison for families. So we effectively adjusted the dashboard a little bit, and we're looking at a particular data set, and now we want to share this back into the Salesforce platform by posting it to a Chatter feed or by effectively downloading the image. So if I would just type in a name and a comment, I am sharing this image back to a chatter feed to a group of people. This is what I wanted to show you. I'll hand it back to Heather, and then if needed, we can go into some questions if there are any questions.
Great, thanks, Thijs. Any questions? If you want to put them in the question panel, I'll just make myself presenter again. Thijs, can you share the cost of a Wave Analytics license? Are you able to do that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, normally I would say get in touch with your account executive, your Salesforce account executive, and they can tell you. I don't have the exact number on top of my head. The price is just under £800 per user per year, and you only need to purchase the amount of users that you want to provide and give access to for this. So you could work with a single user. You could also work with 10 or 50 users. But the standard list price is just under £800 a user a year.
Great, thanks. And that's inclusive of that, I think, isn't it? So yeah, so I mean, I think in summary, you can manipulate, with the Salesforce Classic, which I showed you before. You can have a sort of a wave, a lightning version of those graphs, so they look as snazzy as those. But I think with Wave Analytics, it allows you to chop and dice the data and have a whole new set of graphs available to you to kind of create sort of more exciting sort of analytics, really. And so I think it's, if you need to go to that level, it's available, it's there, and it is not a massive price if only one or two people need it within the organisation. The graphs that I showed you are available within the main instance of the demo that I showed are available on your phone, so you can use Salesforce One to access those dashboards anywhere. You can get them scheduled by email, so they can come through to you, via it, or send to various people in the team if you need to see them. You can get them on your home page, and you can click on the dashboard as I showed you. So hopefully that's been interesting today. We've reached the 10:30, and we haven't had any other questions come through, so that's great. What I'll do is send through a copy of the slides. So if you want to get in touch with ourselves or with the Salesforce.org team about Wave Analytics, and you can do. In terms of further support, you can access our Measuring Impact Masterclass is available, so you can sort of go on that if you want to know more about how to measure impacts and what to measure impact around. And you can also talk to us about Salesforce CRM consultancy. We're also running a couple of other initiatives around training up your administrators. If you want to do it yourself and not have a consultancy in place, then we are running a Salesforce Champion course to actually provide mentoring support to in-house administrators. And also we've got a small charities project at the moment that is focusing on providing 6 days of free support of a 12-day project and small charities under 500k threshold. So that might be, again, something you're interested in if you've got a turnover under 500k and a team of less than 10. So that's something to check out. All the URLs are there. Saying thank you very much for joining us this morning. Hopefully that's provided some inspiration and insight into what is possible. You can go and sort of deploy that within your own organisation. Thanks very much for joining. Take care. Have a good day. Bye.